Okay. All right, we've got one more. All right, fantastic. It's a 3:01, and we're going to go ahead and call this Cal LAFCO, or not Cal LAFCO, our LAFCO of Monterey County meeting to order. It's Monday, October 28th, 2024, 3 o'clock. We're here in the Monterey County Government Center board chambers in Salinas. And if we could get a roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Adams? Here. Commissioner Bickle? Commissioner Gorley? Commissioner Leffel?
Here.
Commissioner Lindley?
Here.
Commissioner Oglesby? Here. And Vice Chair Root Askew? Here. Thank you.
And we have a handful of folks who are not with us today, including our chair, Kimberly Craig. So as vice chair, I'll be stepping in to chair our meeting. We'll get started with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if I could ask our council lead to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag. Do we have any general public comment with us today for anyone who wants to speak on items that are not on the agenda but are within our purview? Not seeing anyone with us in chamber. Is there anyone with us online?
Chair, there's no hands raised on Zoom.
All right, no hands on Zoom, so we'll move on to our consent agenda. Anyone on the board who would like to pull anything from consent?
I need to pull number 4.
Number 4, for comment or for separate vote?
A separate vote.
Vote. All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to pull or comment on any item on consent? Anyone online?
Chair, no hands are raised on Zoom.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and take the remainder of consent? Happy to entertain a motion.
I would move items 1 through 3 and 5 through 9. 10.
All right. We have 5 through 7.
Everything except 4.
Everything on
Thanks.
consent except for 4.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So we've got a motion and then a second. And I don't think we need a roll call. We can just call for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, approved. And we'll move to item number 4. Commissioner Hall?
It's the wording, and it is approve and authorize the payroll of unfunded pension liabilities. It is not the unfunded pension liability. It is the current unfunded pension liability. So it is not the total unfunded. Does that make sense to you all?
So do you want to propose a language?
A language change, yes, so that it is, it's this annual unfunded pension liability.
So adopt a resolution to authorize the lump sum payoff of LAFCO's current year unfunded pension liabilities as follows?
Yes,
Okay.
and I would move that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, approved. And we can move along to our new business, item number 8. Accepting a status report on activities of the California Association of Local Agency Formation Commissions. We have accepting a report from information only, and I believe that'll be from Kate McKenna.
Thank you, Acting Chair, Vice Chair Root Askew. Jonathan has prepared a CalLAFCO activities report that begins on page 39 of your meeting packet. And I would like to share 3 of the highlights from the recent CalLAFCO conference that was held up in Yosemite earlier this month. First, I'm very excited to announce that Monterey LAFCO has been recognized for excellence in public policy. Specifically, our commission received the 2024 CalAFCO Award for the agricultural preservation policy that our commission updated earlier this year. This policy addressed local concerns and provides more certainty, transparency, and additional tools for its successful implementation. It's a progressive policy and a model for other LAFCOs that are also addressing challenges of accommodating city growth while balancing the need to protect valuable farmlands. The reward or the award was received by Vice Chair Ruth Askew on behalf of the entire commission, staff, and council. And we have it right here, if anyone would like to take a look at it. Nice and hefty.
Take it home.
Yeah. Second, we are happy to announce that our Vice Chair, Ruth Askew, was reelected to serve a new term on the CalLAFCO Board of Directors. She represents 15 LAFCOs that comprise the coastal region of the state. And finally, we are also pleased that Vice Chair Ruth Askew was appointed to the Executive Committee of the CalLAFCO Board. She will serve 2 years as Vice Chair of the statewide organization. So we're very grateful for her service on the board and at the executive level. And as staff, we will continue to provide a high level of professional support to her in carrying out those duties. So perhaps other, any of our commissioners who attended the conference, if any of you have any comments, or council or staff, that completes my report. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment, and that is that I had been reluctant to go to this conference, and I'll tell you why. That is because as someone who's about to retire, I thought it might be a waste of taxpayer money to send me on this trip, but I was encouraged to go, and I am ever so glad that I did, because it not only gave me a much clearer lens on the challenges that LAFCOs and other parts of the state experience, it also allowed me to really strengthen the relationships among our own commission and with our executive leader especially, and her team. So just it was a wonderful experience, and they really did a great job on the conference itself, not just the using the beautiful amenities that Yosemite offers, but just the way things were handled was really great. Interesting sessions, all very positive. So thank you very much for encouraging me and allowing me to attend.
Unless there's someone else, Chair, I'll just go quickly. I want to thank the commissioners that went. I was, unfortunately, I was not able to go. I went to Cal City's thing down in Long Beach. But I only turn on the mic to say, to make sure the minutes reflect that Director Eskews was elected to those positions. You know, we need to be in the minutes, in the record, not just a comment.
Yes, sir.
That's my point of view. Because I appreciate you standing up, and it's not easy to get to. It's not easy to get to, so we need to make sure we document it. Thank you.
I found this one the best of any that I have attended. I thought the sessions were more relevant. They had more meat to them. In the past, a lot of them have felt like people just plugged their friends in so their friends would be there, or maybe didn't have to pay the full conference fee. But this one really was quite good. In the last day, I will say that the 2 sessions were really good. They were excellent. The one on preparing future LAFCO leaders had a lot of good information in it on succession planning, which, we're all going to be looking at eventually. And I think the second thing on water policy was really, really good. So I got a lot of really good information, and I'm hoping that they'll have that information so that the rest of you would actually be able to read it. You won't get to hear what they talked about, but at least you could see the materials. So, Anyway, that was it. And I wrote to Renee on the survey and said, I believe this is the best one yet. So.
Good. Well, thank you for the feedback. And I will say the Cal LAFCO conference is one of those opportunities. I think those of us who sit in the opportunity to attend the California Association of Counties conferences get to spend time with our colleagues in the counties realm. Those who attend Cal Cities get to spend a lot of time with our colleagues in the cities realm. Those of you who sit on the special districts get to spend time with your colleagues in special district spaces. But Cal LAFCO is this unique opportunity that brings together this wide variety of leaders spanning a variety of different perspectives. And so the context of the conversations really are rich and diverse with leaders from both small rural communities as well as urban, densely populated communities. And it allows for perspectives that are just really interesting and brings together a diversity of perspectives and ideas and ability to share information. And I think the conversations that took place both in the sessions and in the hallways and in the meals allowed for a lot of ideas to be shared and information to be shared. And the space of Cal LAFCO and LAFCOs in general is one that is of rich information sharing. So I would encourage everyone to think about, getting to the next conference, which is, do you know where the next one is next year?
It's going to be held down in San Diego.
In San Diego.
I believe October 25th through the 28th.
All right, so mark your calendars now so that we can all plan to be there together. And I will also say that we're part of the Central Region chapter, and our Central Region group spent some time talking about what kinds of information sharing and trainings our Central Region might be interested in having collectively in either in convening locally as a region or having like a Zoom meeting with information or educational forums. So if that's something you're interested in, we can get that information back up to our regional EO convener, and I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing from our group for that information. Yeah, well, please do. Thank
I knew
you.
there was a 25th in there somewhere. The dates next year are 22nd to the 25th of October.
Yeah, okay, so that was Cal LAFCO. The other suggestion that I would have, the award that Kate mentioned that we received for our policy on ag mitigation was a pretty significant and prestigious award, and I would suggest that our local LAFCO send a press release out to our local media celebrating and acknowledging the hard work that went into achieving that policy and the recognition that we've received now on a statewide level for that policy being in place to both protect agricultural land here in Monterey County, as well as the clarity that that policy provides to our local cities so that they have the clarity that they need as they move forward with annexation and development and housing growth that's necessary. So that would be a suggestion that I would have as we move forward, if the board agrees, of course. Consensus? Yes. Is consensus? All right, I see heads nodding, so we'll consider that consensus. And any other comments? No? All right, we'll consider this report received. Is there any public comment on this report? I am not seeing any hands raised online. So we will consider this report received and move on to item number 9, to consider a draft of the 2024 Municipal Service Review and Sphere of Influence Study for the 7 Monterey Peninsula area cities, Marina, Seaside, Sand City, Delray Oaks, Monterey, Pacific Grove, and Carmel by the Sea. This is on page 41 of our agenda packet. And we'll pass this to Kate again. Thanks.
Right. Thank you very much. The author of this study is our principal analyst, Darren McBain, and in the course of researching and preparing this work, he has collaborated very carefully with at least a half dozen of our local public agencies. So Darren, can you please provide today's report?
Sure. Thank you, Kate. And Honorable Chair, members of the Commission, thank you. This study has been prepared as part of LAFCO's adopted annual work program. And as always, some of our main goals with preparing one of these studies are to meet LAFCO's statutory mandates to periodically review the services and spheres of influence of all cities and special districts in Monterey County. Also to inform the public about the work being done by our local agencies and to support that work by highlighting some of the agencies' plans, goals, and priorities. So here with this study, we have 7 incorporated cities grouped together in a relatively compact area of about 32 square miles with a combined population of about 99,000. Only three of the cities here, it's kind of interesting to point out that only 3 of the cities have a sphere of influence, which is essentially a future growth expansion area designated beyond existing city limits, and those cities are Marina, Monterey, and Carmel. The other 4 cities in the study, Sand City, Delray Oaks, Seaside, and Pacific Grove, are mostly hemmed in by other cities, state and federal lands, and the ocean, and therefore don't have anywhere to expand outward. I do say mostly kind of constrained by those other lands because this isn't entirely the case with Seaside, as we'll discuss in a moment as we go through and take a brief look at the peninsula cities. Starting in the north and working our way down, we have the city of Marina, which does have 2 large sphere of influence areas designated by LAFCO in the 1980s outside the existing city limits. However, the northern area remains under a Marina voter-approved growth moratorium through 2040. The other sphere area to the south is not under a growth moratorium, but it is partly, although not entirely, already built out under the county's permitting jurisdiction. The southern sphere area also includes the northerly, approximately 1/3 of East Garrison, but not the other 2/3 of that community. That 1/3 that is within the city's sphere of influence, this study is recommending that 1/3 should be considered for being undesignated from the city's sphere of influence, but after the city has completed its currently in progress general plan update in the next year or so, and when the city comes to LAFCO, when and if the city comes to LAFCO to propose a sphere amendment more comprehensively for the city of Marina. And we will come back to this a bit later in the presentation as we work our way to the key findings and recommended actions. Our next city to the south is the city of Seaside, which does not have a sphere of influence designated by LAFCO outside the existing city boundaries, but it does have sites within the existing city boundaries that have significant development potential. And some of these are the Campus Town area, Seaside Main Gate projects, and the future Seaside East specific plan area. The city is mostly constrained, boxed in, shall we say, by the Fort Ord National Monument to the east, Delray Oaks and Monterey to the south, Sand City and the Fort Ord Dunes State Park to the west, and Marina to the north. But there is an area to the northeast, hopefully, well, maybe my cursor doesn't show up on here, but basically just to the east of where the label for Light Fighter Drive is. If you go all the way to the city limits and keep going, there's an area where the city does interface with developable lands in the unincorporated county, and basically this is where the former Monterey Downs project was once being proposed. Moving further south, we have Sand City to the west and Delray Oaks to the east. These are the 2 smallest cities in Monterey County by population. These 2 cities don't have a sphere. Neither one has a sphere beyond city limits, and they don't really have anywhere to grow outward in the future. But both of them do have relatively substantial development sites available within their existing city limits. So kind of small but mighty in that sense, I guess. I should just mention here briefly, there are different map scales for these 2 city maps. Delray Oaks is about twice as big as Sand City, not the other way around. So that's just the way the maps are individually done. Okay, proceeding on to the city of Monterey. The city has a very substantial sphere of influence extending along the Highway 68 corridor past York Road and almost all the way out to Pasadena and the Laguna Seca Raceway. That sphere is almost as big in terms of acreage as the existing city itself. Similar to what we were discussing for Marina just a moment ago, this area is already largely built out now in the county with residential and commercial development. But there are still sites remaining both in and beyond the city's sphere of influence with very substantial development potential. As one example of that, excuse me just a moment. There's an area called Tarpey Flats, which is just a little bit to the south of Highway 68 across from the airport district property. At one time, an early draft of the County of Monterey's housing element was proposing to designate those parcels that are, kind of just outside the city limits there, the larger parcels that you might be able to see across Highway 68, just south of the city limits. At one point, the county's housing element in its early draft form was proposing up to approximately 1,400 residential units just on those two parcels alone, or a handful of parcels right there. Those sites have since, more recently in recent drafts of the county's housing element, those sites have been taken out of the county's draft housing element, but I guess the point is there still remains significant potential development capacity on those sites and other sites in the Highway 68 corridor. And that was just one example. Looking at our final two cities, we have Pacific Grove and Carmel by the Sea. Pacific Grove no longer has any sphere of influence outside the city boundaries following annexation of the former Mission Linen site a couple of years ago. On the other hand, Carmel has a large sphere of influence, slightly larger than the existing city limits themselves. But again, this sphere area has already largely, although not entirely, been developed in the county and therefore has limited potential for new additional development to occur. Although the study discusses a couple of sites within the city sphere where the county has identified housing opportunities for about 75 new residential units. But again, the city of Carmel sphere is mostly built out, and the last annexation to the city of Carmel was actually more than 40 years ago in 1982. Okay, that takes us to the key findings, which are on page 5 of the study, which I believe is page 48 of the meeting packet. Our first key finding is that the cities are efficient, effective service providers that are reliably serving their communities, and they partner with each other and with local service districts to achieve efficiencies and economies of scale. Our second key finding is that substantial population growth through the year 2050 is anticipated, particularly in Marina. This study identifies that AMBAG is projecting a total cumulative growth of about almost 21% between 2023 and 2050 for these 7 cities. That is much higher than the approximately 6% total growth projected for Monterey County or for the Tri-County region. So Monterey County as a whole and the Tri-County region, including Santa Cruz and San Benito counties, both of those larger areas are anticipated to grow at a total of 6% cumulative over those 25, 27 years. So the growth projected for the peninsula is much higher than that. The 7 cities are projected to add a total of about 20,000 residents through 2050, and roughly half of that increase is anticipated to occur in the city of Marina. So just that one city alone, that's pretty remarkable. Third on our list, on the whole, most of the growth and development that would accompany the population growth I just mentioned appears likely to occur within existing city limits. There is a lot of development that has occurred on the city edges in the past, and some of that is still happening and should be discussed, as we'll get to. But for the most part, foreseeable growth and development seems to be mostly on sites that are already within city limits. Some of those sites include Armstrong Station in Marina, Dunes on Monterey Bay, the UCM Best Center main campus, Campus Town, Seaside Main Gate, Seaside East, Sand City Resort Projects, the Delray Oaks Fort Ord parcel, housing opportunity sites in the city of Monterey, the American Tin and Cannery Hotel in Pacific Grove, and so many more. All of these are within the existing city limits. Our fourth key finding is that no sphere of influence changes are currently being requested by the cities or recommended by LAFCO staff. Under number 5, the study discusses that unincorporated county development taking place along the city edges, including within the city spheres of influence in some cases, is a potential unintended disincentive, or could be, for city annexations and orderly city growth to occur, in the sense that developing under county jurisdiction could reduce the number of sites available for development in the city following annexation when that occurs. It could also channel city growth around projects that have already been developed in the county, or it could simply, county projects next to the city could be developed in a way that might be inconsistent with city goals or plans. This study very much recognizes that the county has needs for development to occur in all areas of the county, including in the peninsula area, and that generally is going to involve having development being in proximity to the cities, because most of the peninsula area is within cities. So development on the city edges is nothing new. It occurs on a relatively limited scale, and we know that the county and the cities do coordinate when a county project is being posed in a city sphere of influence. But with that said, this study encourages the cities and the county, along with affected agencies such as the fire protection districts, to consider consulting with each other about future development along the existing city edges in more of a big picture and just kind of forward-looking way, looking to the future, and to consider, as part of those discussions, to consider possibly entering into a memorandum of agreement to help guide future development and provide more certainty to the agencies, the communities, and developers in the future. So those are our key findings in this study. As we look at the building on those key findings and looking at the recommended LAFCO actions based on those key findings, we are recommending in this study that the commission find the study to be exempt from CEQA, approve the study and adopt its recommended determinations in accordance with government code, affirm the currently adopted spheres of influence of the 7 peninsula area cities, we're recommending that the commission encourage the cities of Marina, Seaside, Monterey, and Carmel, along with the County of Monterey and special districts such as Monterey County Regional Fire District and Cypress Fire Protection District, to consider consulting about future growth and development on the existing city edges. And as part of those discussions and following those discussions, the parties could consider entering into an MOA addressing potential future annexations, land uses, municipal finances, or other aspects of future growth and development on the city edges. Further, we're recommending, well, let me start by mentioning the fact that 1/3 of East Garrison is within Marina's sphere of influence, as we were discussing, and that's basically a remnant of the past in the early 1980s, when that was still an active Army base and before it became the residential community that it is and is becoming. So the city does not appear to intend to annex East Garrison, and therefore this study encourages the city of Marina to clarify, as part of its current general plan update process, that the city doesn't intend to annex East Garrison in the foreseeable future, and to consider requesting that LAFCO remove that northerly 1/3 of East Garrison from the city's sphere as part of a future comprehensive sphere amendment that would follow completion of the city's general plan update. And lastly, in our recommended actions, we, with the study, are encouraging the city of Monterey to continue to explore ways to partner with local agencies such as Monterey County Regional, Cypress Fire Protection District, the Monterey Peninsula Airport District, and Delray Oaks, as well as Caltrans regarding fire protection, emergency medical response, emergency vehicle access in the Highway 68 corridor as needs and opportunities evolve in the future. So those are our recommended actions with this study. On this next slide, we just wanted to mention briefly that this has been very much a collaborative process. Crafting this study, we met with city staff and worked with them on a first and second initial draft to gain their input and shape the contents of this study. In developing this draft you have before you today, we also coordinated with the county planning director, the HCD department, and affected special districts, especially the regional fire district and management staff of the Monterey Peninsula Airport District. And lastly, with our next steps, if approved, staff will distribute the approved study to local agencies and encourage the city representatives to share the study with their city councils. We will keep the commission informed of any significant new information or developments on progress of any of the recommendations in the study. We'll do that as part of future meeting agendas. We anticipate that the city of Marina may opt to request a sphere amendment after, as I've said, after the city's general plan update is complete, which is expected to be sometime in 2026. And lastly, staff will continue to coordinate with city staff representatives on potential future boundary changes as needed. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the commission?
Go ahead.
We'll start on this side, Marianne.
I have a couple, and it seems like Monterey Regional Fire is kind of like a thread throughout here because they touch so many boundaries. And when I look at this, and I have studied now a little bit of how when boundaries change and the fiscal impact on different districts, I don't see anything in any of this that says what the fiscal impact would be potentially if someone had to pick up another 200 houses or they had to pick up a different service area. It's well written, but it doesn't seem to have a lot of depth. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's just kind of cursory. So, because if some of these things come to fruition, have we warned people what the impacts could be? Instead of waiting and then we get in and we have to battle it out over something.
Well, I'll just offer that if at such time, if there is a major annexation to one of the cities that would include a detachment from regional or one of the other fire districts, one of the factors in that A through Q list that we talk about sometimes under state law that LAFCOs have to consider and make written determinations about. I'm sorry, I don't have the wording right in front of me, but it basically has to do with what the effect of that would be on the local government structure, which we've always interpreted to mean, include financial impacts. So in addition to our own locally adopted policies about, economics and service delivery, we have a mandate under state law to, quantify and evaluate what the fiscal impacts would be. For example, in this example, like on regional or some other agency, we could say it would definitely be substantial. I mean, we know that these some of these neighborhoods have existed and have been within, one of a fire district, for example, for years. Those areas are a major part of the revenue and the tax base of those districts. And that's, so we do recognize that. We know that we would have to evaluate that and document that and disclose all that as part of the recommendation on a future boundary change, which nothing like that is being proposed or I think even considered right now. But this is really a big reason of why we wanted to include the special districts such as regional or Cypress in these discussions, these consultations that we're encouraging and recommending between the cities and the county. In the past, we've always talked about those as being city-county consultations, but through developing this study, I think we have a better sense now that in this case, it should be more like city-county special district consultations, so that there can be a discussion among the parties of, I'm just kind of putting this out there, but should there be something done that would be above and beyond? Normally a property, when we have a boundary change, there's always this component of a property tax transfer, and normally that's when the agencies or the county on behalf of special districts working with the city, there's a multi-party discussion there to come to a determination on how much property tax should be, or how the property tax pie should be divided amongst the agencies after the boundary change. But there's always the potential to do something different too. For example, in the past, I don't think this sort of thing comes up too often, but there could be cases where, instead of all of the property tax, being transferred away from a special district after a boundary change takes place, could there be some other provision such as, having it be a gradual process over a course of 10 years or something like that? I know ideas like that have been discussed and may have been applied in other kind of semi-comparable situations in the past. But anyway, we really wanted to, we've written our recommendations in such a way to make sure that the special districts that would be affected by a city annexation would have a voice, would have a place at the table when, and if there are sort of bigger picture, long range discussions in the future about how best to address the potential of city development on the edges of the city and annexations into the city in the future.
Making my head swim. So when I look at Marina and I look at the sphere of influence, we know Monterey Regional built a new fire station there. So to me, to encourage Marina to de-annex that 1/3 of East Garrison and make it just so that it's cleaner makes a lot of sense. I don't know that our words are always like encourage, think about, and it just seems like there's not a whole lot of push for people to do what makes sense. I guess that's what I'm saying. And sometimes people need to have that push to do what makes sense.
Thank you. From the executive officer's standpoint, I think that this study is really the first place where this information has been written down. It's been compiled, analyzed, presented, and you won't find that anywhere else. So this is an important first step forward to provide that baseline information. And that's one of the reasons why after our commission adopts this study, we will be asking, recommending that the city managers and city clerks share this information with their own council members. And we'll of course be sharing it as well with the affected fire service agencies in the Monterey Peninsula area. So this educational study is a first step towards broader discussions that we are encouraging.
Okay, so on page 78, and there's a whole big section here on the airport's fire department in contract with the city of Monterey. That entire negotiation was influenced a lot by the residents who live within Cypress and, is it CAL FIRE or Monterey Regional? But they were not they weren't in they're in Monterey's sphere of influence, but they were not, some of them were out of there, but none of them had anything to do with the airport. So when we came to our finalization, which worked out well for everyone, we allayed the fears of all of those residents that they would continue to have first responders coming out of the Monterey Regional Airport. You address the fact that that is in no way the airport has to do that. We have no obligation to the neighbors to go off of that airport, none. But we worked out the deal. When I see this, I see that it's written, it almost seems like the airport has to continue to stay in that. And if there is a new fire service, if there's a new fire station that Cypress, Monterey Regional, City of Monterey would all agree on and make their own deal on the other side of Highway 68 or anywhere along that corridor, the airport would not necessarily be part of that. So I don't see that there's any mention that that could possibly be a solution and take the airport out of that. And I know we've talked about it, and believe me, we've talked about it between the City of Monterey and the airport forever, and with Cypress, and with Monterey Regional. So Delray Oaks has it in their, it's in their charter that they will not allow a road to go to through Delray Oaks. I mean, that's it. The City of Monterey sued the airport so that we could not use the north side of the airport to leave to go answer fire through that access. So I look at this and I'm thinking it's a little flawed in that it doesn't show all of the ways that we got to the solution. And the solution to allow a portable on there, a building was offered to them on the south side. They didn't like it. We came up with, we'll give you space and you can put a portable. But it doesn't really talk about that. And yes, this is a bone of contention at the airport, and particularly maybe with me, but it's just, I think it's missing something here. I think we could encourage the others to build a fire station, but we should also show that it does have a big fiscal impact.
Is it a question or just feedback?
No, it's feedback.
Okay,
I just think it needs some work.
so any other questions? Any other questions?
No, I said it needs work, that's all.
Any other questions on this side?
I have a question.
All right.
Being new to the board,
Questions over on this side?
Oh,
All right.
sorry,
Bring it over to you. Oh, thanks.
I thought you meant this side. Being new to the board, trying to figure out all the pieces of the puzzle, is it pretty common to use the words like encourage? Because obviously we can't, the board of supervisors probably come into this. I guess that's the right terminology. I don't know. I encourage my kids to do a lot of things and then I force them to do a lot of things. So they're two different things. And they have two different impacts. But is that kind of normal language, I guess? Is that kind of just how it?
So maybe just the authority question?
Yes. Thank you for your question. And LAFCO has regulatory authority over certain things like changing boundaries or even approving a study or consolidating districts and approving a change in a sphere of influence. Everything else is more or less encouraging and requesting and working towards something. So what we are addressing here in identifying that fire service and EMS delivery in the Highway 68 corridor is an issue. It's an issue that's been identified by multiple or by several local agencies. That is information, and the what LAFCO can do is encourage.
So, for example, on number 5, can we tell the city of Marina to clarify the boundary as far as their sphere of influence? Or
No, that
we
would
can
be a
only encourage?
request. We make lots of requests. We do participate in city general plan update processes, but we do it from the view that we are making requests and suggestions.
So is encourage the right word, is what I'm getting at.
I think so, yes.
It's a good question, and understanding sort of where the authority falls and who has responsibility for what.
And that's why I raised my hand, I guess, a while ago. I had a problem with the encouraging, and I think sometimes encouraging is the wrong word. I mean, we pick the words we use, right? And I understand we have a certain limit on our authority, but we definitely pick the words we use. For example, when we talk about encourage the city managers to share with the city councils. I mean, right? Okay, we can't make them do anything, but I think we, as an elected body, this board can send that report directly to the councils, directly to, the Board of Supervisors, directly to the special districts boards, and get some type of sign off on that they received it, but just to say we're sending it to their executive director, we encourage them to, if they feel like sharing it with their boards, they can. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense for me, because we want the elected officials, the boards on these special districts and cities, and of course the counties, to look at this report and determine whether it fits for them or not. And I know we've been using encouraging for, since the inception, and it's worked its way there. But I just pick up the thread that was left down because that was my thing about, I want the city councils to get this and document somehow to us that they received it. And the only way really is for us to send it to those elected boards. Okay, and so I agree with that. I think that would be my suggestion. How do we get it directly to the authorities in those bodies? And then maybe down the road, we can look at, is there something a little stronger as it relates to encouragement? I think we had that before where we encouraged before for years and years. And then when the problems come up, we're wondering why they didn't work on the problems. Well, because the communique from 3 or 4 years ago was encouraged. Get your act together, do your studies at the special districts. And I think we just went through a couple of times where these special districts were falling down on their responsibilities. And so I just want to throw that out there, which is, it's a good report. I agree with Director LAFCO about, and I'm not saying it was supposed to do more than inform, right? Educational study. I'm not saying it was supposed to do more, but that's what I feel that it has done. If there's room for us to encourage them with a little bit more strength to solve some of these problems until the next conversation with them, the next go around, so to speak. Do we want to be saying the same thing 5 years from now with our recommendations, our encouragement now? Of course we would jump in if the wheels fell off, right? But if the special districts, kept up doing what they were doing, they never decided to come together and figure out the concern about the fire districts on one end and then the spears on the other, would we be saying the same things 3 or 4 years from now when it's time to do another review. And I know this is just a every so often review, and you could tell us, Kate, why we're doing it this time every couple of years or so. But those are just my comments. I do think Director LAFCO made a good point about, is there room for us to say something as it relates to pathways to encourage those special districts to work on solving their firefighting responsibilities.
Thank you for your comments and concerns. One idea that we've done sometimes is rather than simply encourage, we can initiate a meeting. So we could say that we will be facilitating a meeting to bring together people from different agencies to address issues. So that's stepping it up a notch. And that's something that we do whenever we need to. So maybe that's part of what I'm hearing today, that at least as it relates to the Highway 68 corridor issues with respect to land uses and fire service, perhaps the commission is really asking us to put language in this study that says that LAFCO staff will facilitate a meeting to begin to coordinate with agencies on these issues. That's stronger. And then to your other point about getting the study directly to city council members, yes, of course, we can do that. We don't have to work through a city manager. We can send the completed study directly to city council members and to the board members of the affected other special districts, including the Airport District, Cypress Fire Protection District, and Monterey County Regional, and maybe others I'm not thinking of.
Just two things. It is a really well done and very important report. And I'm wondering, as we were talking about the dissemination to the city councils, do you think that there is time and the ability to go to a council meeting for each of the affected areas so that it could be presented and therefore have more, not just engagement from the city council members, but from the community as well, to really be able to see and understand what it is that LAFCO is proposing and presenting? And if you wanted to use a stronger word than encourage during that meeting, I'm sure that that could be slipped in. But that was just one thing, and I'm really conscious of the amount of time that it would take and the limited staff that we have. But you have some highly qualified people that would be able to pick up some of the slack. That's just one thought. And then secondly, I thought that your comment about LAFCO convening the meetings is just really important. I think that's a very good approach to take. And I'm just wondering, I doubt very much that we want to do it on all things, but the most serious issues, it would make a lot of sense. And I would expect, and I wanted to ask you this, it seems like the fire issue, the fire department issue and its location is the most critical. And to have an opportunity to, once again, bring together the, not just the powers that be, but again, the community, I think, would really be an important element. Sometimes I don't think that people who actually live within the areas that are impacted know what's going on and feel like they haven't been informed. And the more that I believe our role in all things that we do is to engage and inform the community as much as possible. Thank you.
I'll be quick. I do think we need to, change our policy and have it sent to the councils or the affected bodies, right? And on the major issues. But I just, I wanted to add is, that was a good point which Director Adams just said. Adams just said, right, because just think about it. If we ran into someone and they asked us about these questions, some of us may have said, LAFCO is studying that. And that may have been, I don't know, 12 months, 18 months ago, if that makes sense, right? But now the study is out, how do they, as a community, and so that was a perfect, how do they hear about it? And that was my main thing about sending it to the council, because it has to be talked about, fully and openly, as opposed to the city manager to a couple council members, or all the councils one by one. But I just thought that was a great point. How do we tell the citizens what we've just done? How do we get that information to them if we don't put it out publicly? So, thank you, Chair.
For the completeness of this, and thank you, Suffren, for getting this out to us early so that we had a chance to look through it. Some of my questions were related to the population growth assumptions that we're looking at, and I know AMBAG does population growth numbers, and then we also have these sort of housing element state RENA numbers that are coming at us in all of our jurisdictions that don't necessarily align with what the AMBAG growth RENA numbers are looking like. How do we, what population growth numbers is LAFCO looking at when we're coming up with our population growth assumption?
We were working from the AMBAG regional growth forecast, which includes population and employment, and we're working off the most recent draft, which they released last month. I don't think it has been acted on by the AMBAG board yet, but it is the most recent draft, which wasn't that different from their initial draft. But we're using the most up-to-date data that they have.
Got it. Thank you. And I think one of the things that as I look at the ways in which the cities are growing and the ways in which the county is planning for housing, we have our RENA assigned numbers, and to the degree that we can, we're trying to put those housing units near population centers, not just taking, the 3,000 affordable units that we have been assigned and plunk them out in the middle of, nowhere with no services or transportation infrastructure attached to them. So specifically, the site that I'm looking at is I call it the triangle parcel it's the Imbest Center property adjacent to Blanco Road and Reservation Road, roughly adjacent to Marina, which roughly would be assigned 1,000 housing units just outside of the city of Marina, which would effectively require the city of Marina to provide services for 1,000 additional housing units without having any sort of planning capacity. So I'm really grateful that the report addresses sort of some of the inconsistencies that have arisen with the county saying, hey, let's just identify this as one of the housing sites, even though the city of Marina has said, oh, hey, no, that's not what we were thinking for that site. And all of the inconsistencies that become apparent when you have the county making plans adjacent to a city and the city saying, oh, no, that wasn't what we were thinking. We're really trying to intentionally, condense all of our housing. And so I think that also became apparent with some of the Highway 68 properties, and becomes then even more critical that we have the conversations about how do we make sure that we have the infrastructure in these adjacent areas. So just wanted to sort of connect a few of those dots there. The other comment that I had, and I actually called Kate, or we spoke to Kate earlier today, was the question of, at what point do our city council members get brought into this conversation? And have they already been brought into this conversation? Is this a conversation? Is this something that the city council or our special district boards have been reviewing in process, or do they get brought in after the point at which the report is finalized? Because I do think it's important that they are included in the conversation. And not just that the council and the trustees or the board members are included in the discussion about the report, the final reports, but that there's some sort of public opportunity. I think so often we have members of the community who, you expect that all of these things are happening, that your services are being delivered, that, the fire truck arrives when you call for it, that your water service is there when you turn your faucet on, that whatever the need is, that your services are being delivered in an orderly fashion. But unless you're, a LAFCO nerd, as everyone was talking about at the Cal LAFCO conference, and you're paying attention to really sort of how do all these boundaries work and who is responsible for providing what and how do they all kind of coordinate together, you're not paying attention or even thinking about the fact that there's a lot of behind the scenes pieces of a puzzle that are coming together. So I think there would be benefit just to the public to have a chance to, I know how many people are watching the Seaside City Council meetings, and if you were to have a presentation at Seaside City Council, you'd have an opportunity to educate, easily 100 residents or more about some thousands of residents about about something, and then you open the door to say, oh, and there's MSRs on all of these other items. So they have the opportunity to learn more. So I would support that idea that we not only just send the report out to the council members, but offer the opportunity for a presentation if the council or the board so desires.
Do we need to make any kind of a motion on that, or is that just advice for, what was the term we were, encouragement to the general manager?
Encouragement. I like that.
I hear it, and
Yeah.
I agree that when we send out the final adopted study, we would make sure that it gets directly to each council member, and we would offer to provide a presentation on the recent study to each city council, and then do the same thing for our affected special districts.
The only other comment that I have, and I don't know, given the recommendation that to encourage the city of Marina to clarify its intent in regards to East Garrison, there are a number of East Garrison residents who I think would love to have the city of Marina annex them for reasons that may be fully accurate or maybe not fully accurate. So if there may be benefit in having that conversation find its way into the East Garrison community as well, so that they have opportunity to have their voices heard. I'm not sure what the right way to do that would be, but just something to consider. So those are my comments and questions. Let's take this out to the public and see if there's any public comment or question on this item number 9. And I will see if there's anyone online. You can raise your hand if you'd like to comment or question.
Chair, there are members on Zoom, but there are no hands raised.
Not seeing any hands raised. So it looks like we do need to accept this draft report. And I did hear some feedback. So somebody will address the feedback.
Thank you. I wanted to address the comments and concern raised by our Commissioner Leffel. And perhaps it would help if we add some language in the study about the history of the new fire station at the airport. That's one of the concerns that I heard. Is that correct?
Yes, I think there's quite a bit in here, but I don't think it really addresses how the solution came about, and that there are some other solutions that have been proposed.
We could definitely reinforce that. And with respect to a brand new fire station that would possibly be jointly funded somewhere on the Highway 68 corridor, I think the potential or the understanding is that the airport's fire station and the services that it provides could be pulled back then to the airport. But that's why we felt in our recommendations here that it's important to have the airport district staff and board be part of the consultation process so that you can talk about that and
No.
see what makes sense.
When I read 2 of the things with Delray Oaks and the Casanova Oak Knoll, Both of those are off the table because of lawsuits and what you would require with a general plan charter change. So they're not just like, let's go encourage them to do it. It's the law in one, it's a court document, and they wanted it, they got it. So it's just, I would like to rewrite that section a little bit and have it so it's a little bit more clear, I think. Because anybody reading it, it does not show the intent of what the airport did to make everybody happy. And it was a lot of work. I
And
would like this, personally, I would like this to be worked on and brought back next month. And I think I'd like it to go out to the districts and the councils before, that if they have comments, they could come back to us. Because we don't do this every year. This is what, how many years?
probably about 8.
So I think for that amount of time, to let everybody take a look at it and come back with comments, I think that's a good thing to do. LAFCO is kind of like this little secret group over here that just passes stuff by and everybody goes, oh, how did that happen? So I think we should do that. I think it should go out to the councils and the districts that are impacted, give them 30 days to get back, and we bring it back in January.
From a process standpoint, I guess, is this typically an iterative process, or is this, I mean, LAFCO is doing this study.
The process is up to our commission. You have a lot of freedom to handle it any way that you think is appropriate. There's no statutory deadline that we need to get this done today, or our next meeting is the beginning of December, 30 days from now, roughly, or towards the end of January.
And so if we were to solicit feedback from the general managers or the city managers,
That we've done.
you have done
We've
that
done
already.
that several times.
We have done that several times.
Yes, we have solicited comments from general managers of the affected districts, from all of the city managers and their leadership teams, and in some cases, 2 or 3 times. And this language roughly is satisfactory to them, but again, they have not shared that with their elected bodies in draft form. That's really the question here, is whether the commission would want to share the draft study now with the elected officials in draft form, or do you want to wait until it's adopted?
I would like to move that we share it with the elected bodies of all the affected districts and councils and county, and give them 2 to 3 weeks to reply back to LAFCO staff if they've got comments, and that we address this again on the December, 2nd meeting?
Just a comment. I appreciate what your effort is, and I appreciate the thought behind it. I just am conscious that we're changing a process. We are going from a study that's done, that has traditionally been done, and we have been following that model, to a change. And I'm conscious of the timing and the amount of time that it would take to go through and vet all of the comments that may come back. And how much longer is that going to postpone the report from getting out to the people as we want it to?
My thoughts, okay, Kate said, well, the only thing we're doing now is well, everything is fine with this, but I thought Director LAFCO said, LAFCO said that it was 2 or 3 examples, 2 examples in this document that are not viable because of the law and other agreements. But they're in here and people can read them as though they're still options. So at a minimum, those things should be removed. So my support goes to Director LAFCO working with the executive director to, correct that paragraph as we started before. But to send it out to everybody and then we're supposed to weigh in on what they weigh in on, and then to come to agreement of whose recommendation, suggestion on wording is we should adopt. I support Director LAFCO working with the executive director and cleaning up the language about her understanding about what the airport is doing. As a member, she has the experience and authority to weigh in on that issue. That's where I'm at. I think they could change it and we can be done with it. Move forward.
Director Leffel, would a footnote, I mean, we have a number of footnotes included in this study that highlight, nuances or things. I mean, the county has a number of lawsuits that, we often point to as, limiting factors. Oftentimes, situations change and those lawsuits become less limiting factors than they were at some point in the past. We like to point to them and say that is the limiting factor, but limiting factors, situations change. So maybe having a footnote just acknowledging that there are those two issues as current potential limiting factors that are currently in place, just to acknowledge that those exist without changing the content of the report, but also acknowledging the realities on the ground for the airport district. Would that suffice to acknowledge the realities that the district is facing, but also acknowledge the realities that, I guess I'm hesitant to send this back out to everyone again and change process, but I do think we need to acknowledge the realities that the district is facing.
Yeah, but the chair, you said a footnote, and I think it's a little bit more than a footnote. Some of that language, this is our document. We could change the word in this document. And I think Director LAFCO, working with the executive director, can change it where it doesn't, well, we're not talking about substantive changes, right? But I think they can work together to come up with some wording that's acceptable to all of us. But just adding a footnote saying these are limiting factors, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. Right now, it's, like she said, they're off the table, right? She's in that space saying as far as they're concerned from that body, those things are off the table. So, they were put in a document, maybe they shouldn't have been put in a document. I don't know, right? But those are my comments. Thanks, Chair.
What page were you referencing, Marianne?
I'm trying to find it again. Page 78.
I believe if I may just jump in, I believe we're talking about page 35 of the draft, which I think is page 78 of the meeting packet. And looking at the middle of the page, we have a section that starts with looking to the future. The city is researching the feasibility of developing basically a new permanent fire station in the Highway 68 corridor. And then there are other potential options that the city of Monterey has identified, which include the possibility of an emergency vehicle only access point directly from the West Perimeter Road to Highway 68, or working with the city of, working with the airport district and the city of Delray Oaks to explore creating an emergency vehicle only access from the East Perimeter Road to Delray Oaks. And we have noted here that in previous years that has been tried and has not been successful, but there's always hope, basically is what we're saying. But we're not saying that either one of those is feasible or has a strong likelihood. We're saying that these are options that the city of Monterey has identified. Perhaps we could, amend that to include something, some additional information from a different perspective. But I did just want to mention that, we did share this wording with management of the airport district and this specific wording that you have before you today, and we haven't received any feedback on that from them.
They are in the middle of a $200 million project with only about 8 people working on it.
Can
I would like to rework it.
Let me just jump in there, Chair. When we say we haven't heard back from the airport district management, I got that. But we have a representative sitting on this board.
That's fair.
Okay.
I want to just, if I could just clarify real quick, the airport district staff has been very responsive. Couldn't possibly ask for more in terms of their responsiveness to the drafts and questions and language wording that we've given them. They've always gotten right back to us right away. I'm just saying that the airport district has not objected to or commented on this specific wording that we're talking about right now.
Okay, and then to Director Leffel, so if we were to add some sentence or some reference to the fact that in this section that there is currently a lawsuit, the two that you mentioned, there were two things here. So I guess I think we need to keep reference to the fact that these are things that do exist as options. However, additional barriers that exist include the lawsuit and what was the other issue that you raised?
The Delray Oaks City Charter.
And the Delray Oaks City Charter currently exists as barriers to these. Would that address the concerns that you have?
Not exactly. In the first paragraph where it says it requires airport travel through the Casanova Oak Knoll neighborhood resulting in longer emergency, no one's requiring that. So I just need to understand, I guess, to talk to Darren of how that, it says per the city, I get that, but there is we are not going through the Casanova Oak Knoll, ever. That was the lawsuit. So it's in there and it's in these other parts. I just think it needs to be cleaned up a little bit because I don't think it's quite accurate. And I've spent 1.5 years in a lawsuit with these people. I would like this to be clean coming out of LAFCO, yes.
Okay, let me go to Kate.
Thank you. I think that, well, we would be happy to work with Commissioner Leffel and the airport district staff to refine the language in and around this page 78 of your meeting packet to address the airport district issues and make any necessary changes. So we're happy to do that, and that could be a change that you make or authorization or direction that you give us as part of approving this. And before we get further down the line of motions and seconds and all that, with respect to the question about what's encouraging and can we go beyond that, I think we, as staff, if you wanted to direct that we facilitate or, some kind of language like that, facilitate a meeting to coordinate on these broader Highway 68 issues, as opposed to just encouraging from a distance, then that would be a good change to make too. So what I'm hearing right now are two possible amendments that we can make with any motion to approve this study. And then you do have my assurance that the final adopted study with these changes would be promptly issued to the elected officials directly on the councils and boards, as well as to their general managers and county CIO's office and city managers. And as part of that distribution, we would offer to be placed on their agendas for to provide presentations. And that then would open it up for a much wider audience to learn about the study and its findings and the information that it provides.
All right, so we had a motion, but we didn't have a second. So I'm happy to entertain a motion. And if I can state the motion, it would be to direct LAFCO staff to work with the airport district on edits to ensure correct language on page 78 of the sphere study, to amend language regarding the Highway 68 corridor to state the facilitation of coordination, and to issue the final study to electeds to offer and with an offer to present the final study to their boards. Do we have a motion
I'll
to
second
that
it with a
effect?
couple of little, I think when you were reading about the facilitation component,
Yep.
are you not talking about facilitating a community meeting?
Facilitation between the agencies.
Okay, I think that needs
Impacted
to be made
agencies.
very clear.
Sorry, facilitation between the affected agencies.
Okay, yep, that's good.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We've got a second, and we'll, all in favor.
Aye.
Actually, before we do that, we did public comment, right? We'll do one last call for public comment, just for good measure. Seeing no hands raised, we'll take all in favor. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None? Anyone abstain? All right, done. Made that one, got through that one. All right, thank you for the valuable and rich conversation. I think we had some good changes there. Okay, moving along to item number.
Chair, can I just jump in?
Yeah, thank you.
You know, I appreciate your comments, and I just want to remind, like Director LAFCO said earlier, next time we'll talk about this is about 8 years from now. So taking 20 minutes that we didn't think we were going to take, I'm comfortable with that, so thank you.
Thank you all
Well said.
for the engagement. All right, and thank you staff for doing all the work to get it pulled together. All right, next up, item number 10 is to consider draft 2024 municipal service review and sphere of influence study for the San Lucas and San Ardo water districts. This is on page 98 of our agenda packet, and we'll start by receiving a report from our executive officer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This report was prepared by Jonathan Brinkman, and he also coordinated with the special districts that are the subject of the study, as well with Supervisor and Commissioner Chris Lopez's office in the preparation of the study. And I believe that we also had other more private stakeholders that Jonathan also worked with. So Jonathan, if you can please provide a report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners and Chair Wendy Rudescu. So today's item, we have the Executive Officer's Report on page 98 of the packet. Attached to that report, we also have a draft, a public review draft of an MSR sphere of influence study for these two water districts, and a draft resolution that would adopt the study. So the goals and purpose of the study is to meet LAFCO's statutory mandates, to provide information for the public, and to assist the two water districts. So just want to give those kind of quick goals overviews for the study. And then into the scope and the setting of the study. So we have a map up on the screen, and at the top left, we have the city of King City, population approximately 17,000. Then we have two unincorporated communities. First 10 miles further to the south is the San Lucas community, and it's served by the San Lucas Water District. And then another additional 10 miles to the south, we have the San Ardo community served by San Ardo Water District. And these are two independent special districts, and their purpose is to provide water and sewer services to their communities. And just as background, I want to give you some information about their population. San Lucas population is estimated to be 377. San Ardo's population is estimated to be 624 people. And then in terms of their budgets, San Lucas's revenues are estimated to be approximately $130,000 a year, and San Ardo's revenues are $150,000 a year. In terms of governance, they have elected boards. However, when there's fewer than two people running for office or contesting a seat, the positions are typically appointed by the Board of Supervisors. Both water districts face an aging infrastructure, and that has been a challenge for both districts. And both districts are facing environmental risks. In the case of San Lucas, They have a long-term water quality issue with nitrates in their water. They also have other contaminants of salt water salinity in their water, iron, manganese, and the nitrates are typically caused by fertilizers from stormwater runoff and from septic systems. And then with the San Ardo Water District, they do not have those same water quality issues. However, their water and sewers facilities are located in the Salinas River floodplain. So they are and have been subject to flooding. In 2023, the well was flooded with the floods, and they did have a do not drink order until contamination could be taken care of, which the district did take care of and used primarily FEMA funds to fund those repairs. And within a few, several months, it was brought back into service with clean water. But they are subject to more prone to flooding due to climate change. So it is an environmental risk factor for that district. So I just wanted to give that kind of setting for both of these districts. And then in our key findings for the study, given those challenges, to the extent possible, both districts are carrying out their missions and providing water and sewer services to their respective communities. Another key finding is that due to these, their exposure to environmental risks, both San Lucas and San Ardo are considered environmental justice communities. The two districts have not increased their fees and rates for more than 10 years. So that's one of our key findings. And then the two districts are not in conformance with several state legal requirements. And then finally, our finding is there's no changes to the district spheres of influence are currently recommended. And then this leads into our recommended LAFCO actions. So first would be to find the study to be exempt from CEQA. Second would be to approve the study and adopt its recommended determinations. Third would be to encourage each district to complete capital improvement programs and rate studies and establish appropriate rates and cover the future cost of service provision. And then we would also recommend that they affirm the currently adopted sphere of influences for both districts with no changes, and then to authorize the executive officer to proceed with a range of corrective measures to address each district's non-compliance with state legal requirements and best practices. And in preparation of the study, we met with board members of both districts and also contacted their staff to provide background for the information for the study. We prepared an administrative draft and provided that to the board members and staff of the districts, and they provided feedback. So that has been implemented and included in the public review draft that is being presented to you today. So with that, staff's available for any questions.
I think I'm back to my encourage statement. Looked at their audit. Their revenues have never been higher than their expenses, and they've never raised the rate, or haven't raised the rates in 10 years. Seems somewhat ridiculous. Not that I understand that the people in that community may not be able to afford some of that, but that issue still needs to come up, that we say encourage. I think there needs to be a little more teeth to that. And as Commissioner Askey said earlier about the LAFCO nerds, they may not know what's going on. Everybody knows when their water gets turned off. Not everybody knows what their fire service is. So just saying that on that other debate we had earlier, where you may not know where your fire service comes from, you know where your water comes from because you turn the sink on, there's no water there. So, but just back to that encouragement, I think there needs to be something a little more with a little more teeth in it to tell them that we need to raise the rates. to basically cover the cost. That probably doesn't include any major repairs. That's probably just the expenses.
Just to provide some additional information, when we spoke to the districts, they were receptive to conducting rate studies and looking to what the appropriate rates would be for what's needed. I think with the San Lucas Water District, they are currently, the state has done a feasibility study and associated engineering studies to look at a long-term water solution. That process hasn't had a defined date when the state will decide what solution to provide. So, but there are resources for both districts from the state, and that's district representatives did state that they intend to move forward with rate studies and setting new rates.
I guess I should say that was the San Lucas that I was looking at. The San Ardo looks different as far as their revenues and expenses. So I was referring to the San Lucas.
Any other questions over here? Supervisor Adams or Commissioner? Any other questions on this side?
I have a comment.
Yep.
I think Jonathan was with me in the Big Basin water discussion. Was anybody else in that discussion at the LAFCO conference? It's pretty, there are 386 failing systems in the state today, 386. We have more than our share in this county. But one of the things they talked about was the fact that these small districts and the small mutual water companies have not raised the rates in years, and they've gotten so far behind. So I think one of the things we should pretty much encourage to the max is that they immediately do a rate increase and start. They're going to have to back into it, but they need to start now to get it to a point that they can sustain themselves. The other thing that they talked about was the amount of grants that are out there for these small districts, and they're all over, but the small districts have no idea how to find them. So maybe that is something that our staff could help research and help them know what's available to them. And that, were you in that, weren't you in that with me, Jonathan? Okay, so there was that woman, Lydia from the Moonshot, and that's a nonprofit that is helping these small districts, and I think maybe it would be good to put them in contact with her, vice versa, and see if maybe there's a way that she could help them. So, sorry, when you send me to a conference, I sit through all the things and take notes, but they've got to start raising the rates. They have, I mean, otherwise it's going to fail, and then it becomes a big burden on everybody.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I think Supervisor Lopez would be very interested in working with you on that issue without question.
All right. Question? No?
Yeah, I don't, at a certain point, all we do is encourage, so I don't want to act like we can tell them. But I know one thing we are responsible for, making sure they are up to speed on their legal requirements. I know we had that responsibility. So how much, do you think you're going to get any pushback to the regular stuff, adopting a budget, Form 700, all those, ethical training, those things don't cost the ratepayers, but it is good information for the board members to have.
May I answer? Thank you for that question. And I believe that the board members of both of these districts are very receptive to that kind of help that we can provide. And the models that we can use are ones that we've recently put into effect under your direction and authorization. We've been working very carefully or thoroughly with 3 districts in the city of Greenfield area, and now one special district in the Soledad area, a cemetery district. And over the last several months, there has been marked progress made by every one of those districts to conform with basic things that a public agency needs to do. So that by helping bring resources to them and providing careful support from LAFCO staff and also from outside counsel, we're really moving those districts in the right direction. So our plan is to implement something very similar now with these two districts, that we stay involved. And because we're recommending that you authorize that we stay involved with these corrective plans for improvement, we would basically be having that opportunity to work with these districts to make sure that those rate studies get started. So it's more or less could be added to the corrective plans. Maybe that's a good way to put it. So that way we can bring to bear any resources that Supervisor Lopez's office can offer, or nonprofits, or the state water board. So thank you.
Great. And I'll just say, I think, yes, in both of these cases, the rate studies are a component, but the need here is so much larger than what a rate study is going to be able to address. These are situations where we have the full force of county legislative affairs working at both the state and federal level with our entire state and federal delegation to secure long-term significant funding to address these issues. And yes, they will need to become self-sustaining over time, but the significance of the need that exists here is so large and so dramatic that to go from an annual revenue of $130,000 budget where you have needs of $15 million, $20 million infrastructure costs to be able to connect your water systems to safe water. The dramaticness of that is so large that for this community, but we do need to make sure that they're prepared with all of the infrastructure and when we do get those dollars and those funds and those systems in place. So thank you for making sure that we're prepared to deliver on the ongoing operations once we have the capital needs met. So with that, I'll go out to public comment on this item. Is there anyone with us from the public who would like to make comment on item 10? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm not hearing any further feedback. So I think if we could entertain a motion to receive this report.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Was there further comment from our executive officer? No, good, okay, got it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? None? All right, we'll consider the item approved and move on to our executive officer's communications.
Thank you. I have no additional items tonight.
All right, that's easy. Let's see here. Next, commissioner comments. Any comments from our commissioners? And we'll start on the side with Commissioner Leffel. Any comments tonight?
Just so you all know, we did, the airport district did receive another $14.2 million toward the new terminal. So that gives us the money to start the construction. And we were able to secure an additional $16 million for all of the parking and circulation, which is typically not anything that FAA will pay for, but they paid for it because it is part of the required safety improvement And so it is coming out of their budget and not our local. So the funding is moving right along better, I think, than we anticipated. So that will break ground probably in April.
All right. Then, any calls? All right. I just want to say election day is coming up, so make sure you get those ballots turned in. Every vote counts, especially in small communities like ours. I don't believe we have any closed session today, so thanks for being here. And with that, our next meeting is Monday, December 2nd at 3 p.m. here at the Monterey County Government Center. We'll also be live on Zoom. So we will adjourn to our next meeting. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.